Evening is falling at Spring Farm in Karoi, about 200 kilometers north of Harare. Owner Timba Mliswa is bringing his herds in for the night. He received 800 hectares 7 years ago under Zimbabwe's land reform program. It nationalized some 4,500 commercial farms owned by white farmers and distributed them to thousands of black Zimbabweans. Mliswa farms tobacco, maize, and beans, and raises cattle, goats, and sheep.
The whole land reform is noble, and I think there will always be a debate. When was it supposed to happen? When was it not supposed to happen? I'd like to say, for me, I am a product of the land reform. I've done well. I've done more than the white farmer used to do.
Mliswa took over the farm after the previous owner, Alan Parsons, was beaten and driven away by a gang. Mliswa also took ownership of the buildings, cattle, and other facilities that were not supposed to be part of the redistribution. Parsons, according to several farmers, received no compensation and now lives in Australia. John Warsick was also driven off his farm. He founded the Justice for Agriculture Trust. He says President Robert Mugabe's ZANU PF party launched the land program for political reasons.
Mugabe knows that he has lost the support he had. His support was traditionally from rural areas. He knows he's lost that. But he believes emphatically that he can not win that back, but he can turn it back to him through a terror campaign, intimidation and terror out there, coupled to controlling food out there.
Critics say land seizures are largely responsible for the 40% drop in economic production in Zimbabwe over the past decade. They contend that very few of the seized farms are commercially productive. And they say a large number of black farm workers left the farms when ownership was transferred, fueling the country's 90% unemployment rate. Mr. Mugabe and ZANU PF leaders, whose families own some of the largest farms, blame the economic decline on Western sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe because of human rights violations. Farm seizures intensified this year after Mr. Mugabe entered into a power-sharing arrangement with former opposition leader and now Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai, who says the seizures should stop. The violence linked to them continues. In Chegutu, north of Harare, the farms of Ben and Laura Freeth and her parents were burnt under mysterious circumstances.
They broke into my parents' house in April on 3 occasions. There was a break and entry charge. They were not arrested. Our workers were assaulted. One guy's head was fractured. Another guy, they broke his feet. No arrests made. You know, and all the crops stolen, all the equipment stolen.
Virginia Sibanda supervised a sewing cooperative on the farm that made linens and tablecloths. Everything was lost in the blaze.
Right now, we are clearing the ashes because we no longer have work to do. All the materials and finished items were gutted in the blaze.
Many people were disturbed by the violence that accompanied the seizures, but farm owner Timba Mliswa says it happened because the owners resisted the transfer.
I've never known of a revolution that has no blood, and this is something that of course was a revolution, and it had blood on both sides. You know, you also had blacks being killed in the process, you had whites being killed in the process, and so forth.
University of Zimbabwe professor Eldred Basunungure says support for land reform is widespread because a small minority was seen as controlling most of the good land.
It's a recipe, for social and political disaster and upheavals. So in terms of the principle of land reform, that is accepted across the board. But the methodology of doing so, is where there is contestation.
Some experts say compensation for farmers who lost their farms should be examined. In addition, they say land redistribution has stripped Zimbabwean agriculture of many of its best farmers, and that black farmers should be helped to gain the skills they need to operate successful commercial farms. But without the help of the displaced farmers, that will take time. Scott Bobb, VOA News, Harare.